Good day, my dear students, especially for those grade 9 students with CSS as your major in your TLE subject. So once again, I am bringing here another supplemental video about Lesson 2.1, Safety Procedure in Using Tools and Appropriate PPE. First and foremost, we will have to take up first what are the different objectives of this lesson. There are only two. Number one, discuss the importance of personal protective equipment or the PPE. And the second one is observe safety procedures in using tools and personal protective equipment at all times. By the way, what is personal protective equipment or PPE? PPE or personal protective equipment refers to protective clothing, helmets, goggles, or other gear designed to protect the wearer's body or clothing from injury, from electrical hazards, heat, chemicals, and infection, for job-related occupational safety and health purposes. PPE or personal protective equipment can also be used to protect the working environment from pesticide application, pollution, or infection from the worker. For example, in a microchip factory. It is important that students and teachers during their laboratory period should be required to use personal protective equipment. By the way, what are the different importance of the personal protective equipment or the PPE, especially this time of pandemic? So here, I have illustrated or I have shown here an image or a picture of a person who are wearing the PPE. This PPE is very applicable this time. I think this three persons here or in the picture are frontliners. So here are the different importance of the PPE. Number one, to minimize exposure to hazards that cause serious workplace injuries and illness. So with the protection that the frontliners are wearing in the image that I have shown, um, they are they can minimize the exposure to hazards because of the attire or the PPE or the personal protective equipment that they are wearing. So, the injuries and illness may result from contact with chemicals, radiological, physical, electrical, mechanical, or other workplace hazards. So, in every aspect of our lives, there are a lot of hazards that we may encounter in the future or in the present. So, that is why personal protective equipment are very important. Second is to protect the wearer's body from injury, especially for job-related occupational safety and health purposes. Number three, it prepares you for any health and safety risk. So, when you are wearing the PPE, meaning this will be worn before you have to face for any hazards in your workplace. Number four, gives you extra protection in an event of accident or against the elements. So those are the different importance of the personal protective equipment or in short the PPE. Required personal protective equipment. These are the items or the PPE which are required especially in our area or in line of our work, which we are considered as future technicians, computer technicians. Number one, goggles. Goggles are large spectacles with shells around the rims for protecting the eyes from dust, excessive light, wind, and others. So this is very common. Goggles are very common. So not only computer technicians are required to wear these goggles, but rather especially those who are um, welders. So just to protect the eyes from any dust. Next is rubber sole. A shoes with a rubber sole. Special type of shoes used to prevent electrical shock and for waterproofing and insulating purposes. So the image that I have shown is an example of a shoes with a rubber sole. So kanang rubber ang iyang lapa-lapa. So that's what we call as shoes with rubber sole. Number 3 is apron. An apron is worn or a garment worn over the front of the body as a protection for one's cloth. So for protection of dirt that may come in contact with your skin, with your clothes. So that's the work of or the role of the apron. Number 4 is face mask. So we are very familiar with this face mask, especially this time of pandemic, that we are obliged to wear the face mask so that we can prevent ourselves from being contaminated of the COVID-19 virus. So face mask is a covering for the face, especially our nose, our mouth, to prevent the inhaling or absorbing dust and other chemicals. So the image that I have shown is an example of a face mask. Number 5 is the gloves. The gloves is the covering material with a separate sheath for each finger used for hand protection. So in order to avoid being contaminated with virus, especially this time of pandemic, so you need to wear the gloves. So the bacteria may not directly in contact with your skin, with your hands, but rather it will only be being in contact with the gloves. Then as you remove the gloves, then the bacteria will be again thrown together with the gloves. The last number is anti-static wrist strap. I think this anti-static wrist strap is also discussed in my previous video, which is part of your lesson. So this is already known to you. Anti-static wrist strap is an anti-static device that reduces, dampens, or otherwise inhibits electrostatic discharge, or what we call as ESD. ESD means electrostatic discharge, which is the build-up or discharge of static electricity. Anti-static and safety precautions. So what should be our prevention out of this static electricity? This static electricity, the little shock you experience, that is what we call static electricity. That is the little shock you experience while you are walking across a carpeted floor or when you touch a doorknob, a table, a counter, or even another person is a result of static electricity. Okay, so that's static electricity. By the way, the definition of static electricity is discharge of electricity between two objects with different electrical potential. Humans can feel a static shock until it is several thousand volts strong, but it takes less than 30 volts to fry a sensitive computer components like memory stick or the RAM or the processor. So that is static electricity. Next is we have the safety and anti-static rules. These rules should be followed, especially for us future computer technicians, because we're dealing with electricity. Number 1 is always use an anti-static wrist strap when working on a computer, except when working on monitors. So there are pictures or images that I have included in this video. This shows the use of the anti-static wrist strap. First picture is a picture of the anti-static wrist strap itself, and the other one, the second picture is my picture. I am illustrating how the anti-static wrist strap is being used. So the anti-static wrist strap is being attached into your wrist, while the other end at my right hand, that is being attached to any metallic part of the system case or the system chassis or the computer chassis. So that is one of the safety rules. The number two, always disconnect a computer from the AC power and from any powered peripherals while you are working on it. The illustration that I have included or attached in this video is the male plug is being unplugged from the AC power. So you should not do this in your experience. You should have to always unplug first prior to doing something in your system unit. You should always disconnect from the AC power. AC power means alternating current, the current that are being supplied by the Boheco. Next is always grasp a metal part of the computer chassis with your bare hand before you touch anything inside. Do this even if you're wearing an anti-static wristband. So the illustration that I have included again is my picture using the anti-static wrist strap, which is being attached to the metallic part of the system case, while I am also grasping the metallic part of the system or computer chassis. So it is not an assurance that you will not experience static electricity because you are wearing the anti-static wristband. No, you can still experience the uh, effects of static electricity even when you are using the anti-static wristband or anti-static wrist strap. So that is why it is advised that we should always grasp the metal part of the computer chassis in order to discharge our static electricity. Then next is always handle the electronic components by a non-conducting or metallic part or edge of the object or the device that you are holding. Don't touch the pins, especially you are holding a processor or other connectors. So in that case, the illustration that I have shown is I am holding a RAM wherein I am holding in the areas that are not considered as the metallic part. The one which is in gold colors, those are the metallic parts, which is very sensitive, and that part should not be touched. So that's it. Always handle electronic components by a non-conducting edge. Next is never plug an ATX power supply into AC power unless it is connected either to a computer's motherboard or to a dummy test load. So what does ATX stands for? ATX is an acronym which means Advanced Technology Extended. If you have noticed, the acronym ATX, the last letter is X, and the word which is the meaning of X is extended. So maybe you wonder why it is being used because it is very rarely used that an acronym is being defined from any other letters of the word, but rather it should be the first letter of the word that is the meaning of the letter, which is the acronym ATX, Advanced Technology Extended. The second letter of the word extended, that stands for letter X. So never plug an ATX power into an AC power unless it is connected either to a computer's motherboard or to a dummy test load. This is the common errors that we are practicing, especially when we are charging our devices, our cell phones maybe, that we have to plug first our charger prior to connecting the connector of the charger to our device. And that should not be done supposedly. But that is our practice, right? So now this time that you have already an idea or knowledge, you should not do it again. You have to connect first your cell phone from the connector prior to connecting or plugging it into the AC power. Next is always use a UL approved surge protector or an interruptible power supply that incorporates surge and spike protection. So UL means Underwriters Laboratories. sa manang gitawag og UL approved. When we say UL approved, it is an independent, non-profit company that tests electric and electronic products for safety. So, mo na sila yung mga ahensya or agency that test the electric and electronic products for safety purposes. And that means Underwriters Laboratories. That is the meaning of the acronym UL. And that means that when we say UL approved ng imong gigamit nga uninterruptible power supply, that means that it meets the criteria for the UL, minimum performance standard for swords suppressors. So nakapasar ba sa requirement sa mga surge protectors or power supply or uninterruptible power supply? Ang uban gitawag ana og UPS, uninterruptible power supply, but others are also called AVR, automatic voltage regulator. So ang mo test ana or mo QC or quality control is the UL or Underwriters Laboratories. Then the last one is never eat, drink, or smoke while working on a computer. In common cases, since computer laboratories are air-conditioned room because of the safety or the temperature that is required for a computer unit, usually it is an air-conditioned room. But since it is an air-conditioned room, the computer laboratories are used sometimes as meeting area or meeting conference hall. So we cannot justify this anti-static rules and safety procedures because we are violating this safety procedure by not eating, drinking, or bringing even or smoking while working on the computer. And kana sa mga wires, di ba, ang computer, there's a lot of wires. It is composed of wires. Once you have to bring food, you have to bring any sweets, drinks, nga mga tamison, it invites the attention of rats. And that is why our units, our computer units are in mamiligro. Namiligro because of the presence of rats around. So that is why prohibited jud unta supposedly ang pagdala og pagkaon, pagdala og mainom, especially liquidized form of drinks. Because sometimes if you are working with the computer, you cannot assure that there is no accident that may happen during the situation. Maybe you can drinks maybe may spill into the keyboard or into any components of the computer system, and that may cause some hazards, right? Okay, I hope you have already the experience or you have already the idea on how to take good care of our devices, especially devices that includes or that consist of electricity in order for us to refrain from the anti-static electricity. Uh, I'll repeat in this lesson, safety procedures in using tools and appropriate personal protective equipment with the different objectives. I hope that I have already met the objectives which are being stated in the beginning of this video lesson. So I have to repeat that the objectives of this lesson is discuss the importance of personal protective equipment. So that is check. Then the second one is observe safety procedures in using tools and personal protective equipment at all times supposedly. So I hope you have learned something. You have learned a little from this, even a little from this video lesson. Thank you. And once again, God bless everyone.